The crowd parted as a slaver's hammer froze midday. The man's tone wasn't loud, yet it carried like thunder through the dusty square. Coins clattered against the wooden platform, enough silver to make even cruelty hesitate. The slaver blinked, then smiled his rotten smile. Both? You must be joking. Off-worlder. Elias Ward said nothing. He just stayed, the kind of stare that made men remember their own sins. The laughter thinned. The merchant swallowed, grabbed the coins, and shoved the girl forward. Chains fell. The older one stumbled, her hand still gripping her sister's. Both stared at Elias as if expecting a trick. He didn't reach for them. Instead, he turned and said, quietly, "Come." They followed, not because they trusted him, but because every other direction looked worse. Outside the market, the wind howled through the rusted towers of the outpost. The smell of burnt metal mixed with cold sand. Elias walked ahead, broad shoulders cutting through the storm, while the children trailed behind like faint blue ghosts. When they reached the transport bay, the younger one began to cry. No sound, just tears. Elias stopped, awkward, unsure what to do. It had been years since he comforted anyone. He crouched, handed her his canteen. "Drink," he said. She looked at it like it might explode. The older girl whispered, translating in broken English. "She thinks you'll take it away." Elias paused. "Then tell her I won't." For a long moment, they just looked at him, the girl with eyes like molten gold and the little one clutching a ragged doll. Finally, she sipped. The smallest sound of trust broke through the wind. Elias exhaled, almost a laugh, but not quite. "What's your name?" "Kira," the older said. "And she's Luma." "All right, Kira, Luma." He stood, motioned toward the ship. "Let's go home." Kira frowned. "You have a home." His eyes flickered. Pain, memory, loss. "Used to," he murmured. "Maybe we'll build a new one." The engines roared to life, scattering the sand like a storm. Behind them, the marketplace sank back into chaos. But for 3 souls inside the rusted ship, something impossible had just begun, the slow rebirth of trust. The old freighter drifted through the violet clouds of Masai Ridge, its hull trembling as it broke free of the outpost gravity. Inside, silence ruled, the kind of silence that felt earned after too many screams. Elias guided the ship with steady hands. The control lights flickered across his face. Sharp lines, tired eyes, the look of a man who'd seen too much and cared too little. Until now, behind him, the sisters huddled together on a torn blanket. Luma clutched her doll, a scrap of cloth with one eye missing. Kira watched Elias with quiet suspicion, her golden eyes full of unspoken questions. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. Elias didn't turn. "Somewhere quiet." "Quiet places don't exist anymore," Kira muttered. That made him glance back, just once. "You're too young to sound that old." "I'm old enough to know people lie." He almost smiled. Almost. "Then maybe I'll surprise you." Hours later, they landed in the northern valley, a forgotten canyon surrounded by stone pillars and dust storms that never reached the ground. A cabin stood there, half buried in sand. It looked abandoned, but when Elias keyed the door, the locks hummed to life. Inside, it smelled of metal and pine resin. Tools hung from the walls, a small generator hummed in the corner, and a table stood with 3 mismatched chairs. Luma touched one carefully, as if afraid it might vanish. "This is your home?" Kira asked. "It was a long time ago," Elias said, setting down his bag. "I didn't think I'd come back." He lit the lamps, the light spilling across their faces. Soft, fragile, human. For the first time, Luma smiled. Elias felt something shift in his chest, a memory of laughter, warmth, a child's voice calling him Dad. He turned away before it broke him. Outside, the wind howled against the canyon walls. Far above, a patrol ship moved across the night sky, silent, searching. Kira saw it through the window. "They're looking for us." Elias checked his blaster, his voice calm but low. "Then let's make sure they don't find us." And in that quiet, dust-covered cabin, 3 strangers began to feel like a family, unaware that the storm wasn't over. It was just circling closer. Night settled over the canyon like a heavy blanket. The cabin lights dimmed, and for the first time in years, Elias heard something he'd forgotten existed. Quiet breathing, not his own. Kira and Luma slept in the corner, wrapped in a thick blanket. The little one's hand rested on her sister's arm. Elias sat at the table, staring at the small transmitter blinking faintly in his palm. It was old-tech, military-grade, encrypted, but someone, somewhere, had managed to send a signal through it just an hour ago. He replayed the static again. Beneath the distortion, one phrase was clear. They escaped with a human. Retrieve the asset. His jaw tightened. He shut the device off and tossed it aside. He'd promised himself he was done with wars, done with orders. But the universe had a way of dragging old ghosts back into the light. A soft voice broke the silence. You're not sleeping either. Kira stood by the door, barefoot, watching him with those glowing eyes. She looked too small for the weight she carried. Elias tried to sound casual. Couldn't. Storm's loud tonight. She didn't believe him. You were a soldier, weren't you? He froze, just long enough for her to see the truth. Long time ago, he said quietly. She hesitated, then whispered, Then you know what happens when they come back for us. Elias met her gaze. Yeah, he said. That's why we'll be ready. He stood and moved to the control panel, flicking on the external sensors. The screen flickered, movement miles away, faint but real. 3 heat signatures, traveling fast. Kira's breath hitched. They found us. Maybe, Elias muttered, loading the blaster. But they don't know me. He checked the rifle's charge, his fingers steady. Somewhere deep inside, the soldier he'd buried long ago began to wake. Outside, lightning split the sky, flashing against the red rock walls. Luma stirred in her sleep, murmuring something in her alien tongue. Elias glanced at her, then at Kira. Get her ready, he said softly. If they come, we run. Kira swallowed hard. And if they don't? He gave a thin, tired smile. Then we live, at least for one more night. The storm hit before dawn. Wind screamed across the valley, hurling sand like shattered glass against the cabin walls. The sky burned red, not from the sun, but from thrust of fire cutting through clouds. Elias woke first. Instinct, not sound. He moved fast, every step quiet but deliberate. He'd seen ambushes before. This had that same rhythm, a hunter's patience. He tapped Kira's shoulder. Wake her? Now. Kira blinked, confusion shifting to fear as the roof trembled. She scooped up Luma, who clung to her neck, half asleep. Elias grabbed his rifle and opened the outer hatch just enough to see. 3 figures were moving through the storm, tall, armored, the kind of soldiers who didn't miss. Their visors glowed faint blue, cutting through the dust. He could almost hear their comms chatter through the static. 2 juveniles, 1 adult human. Orders are to retrieve. Lethal if necessary. Elias exhaled through his teeth. Always the same orders. He turned to Kira. Down the ridge, there's a vent shaft. Leads to an old mining tunnel. Take her there. Don't stop. What about you? She whispered. He didn't answer right away. I'll slow them down. Kira shook her head. You'll die. Maybe, he said, but you won't. Before she could argue, the door exploded inward. Metal splinters flew. Elias pulled her behind cover and returned fire. 1 shot, 2. The storm outside lit up with plasma bursts. Kira dragged Luma toward the back hatch, coughing through the smoke. She looked back once. Elias was standing in the doorway, firing into the chaos, his silhouette framed by lightning and fire. One of the soldiers lunged forward, blade drawn. Elias met him head-on. The impact threw both against the wall, the sound of metal on metal echoing through the cabin. Kira hesitated. Every instinct screamed to run, but her feet stayed frozen until Elias shouted, Go? She toned, clutching Luma tight, and vanished into the storm. Elias watched them disappear, then reloaded with trembling hands. His shoulder burned, blood mixing with dust. The wind howled through the shattered cabin, carrying the faintest sound, Luma crying out her first human word. Papa. He closed his eyes for half a second, then stood to fight again. The cabin burned behind him, a broken beacon in the storm. Elias staggered into the open air, rifle half empty, lungs full of dust. The last soldier still stood, taller than the rest, armor cracked but eyes unflinching behind a glowing visor. "You can't hide them forever," the voice rasped through the calm. Elias wiped the blood from his mouth. "I don't need forever. Just long enough." The soldier raised his weapon. Elias fired first. 2 shots. One miss. One found its mark. The armored figure collapsed, sparks flaring across the sand. Elias dropped to one knee, breath shaking. The storm began to fade, leaving only silence and the slow crackle of fire from what used to be home. He looked toward the ridge, nothing but shadows and swirling dust. Somewhere down there, Kira and Luma were still running. Alive. That was enough. A faint voice broke through his earpiece, one he hadn't heard in years, the same frequency he thought he'd destroyed. "Elias Ward," the voice said, "you disobeyed command again." He almost laughed. "Guess I'm consistent." They were classified assets. "They're kids," he said quietly. "You just forgot what that word means." He pulled the comm from his ear and crushed it beneath his boot. The wind caught his coat, snapping it like a torn flag. Minutes later, headlights flickered through the haze, his freighter's autopilot, still obeying its last command, protect the cargo. He climbed aboard with trembling hands, resetting the navigation route one final time. "Find them," he whispered to the ship's AI. "And don't come back." The engines roared, lifting the vessel into the pale sky. Elias stepped away from the ramp as it closed. The light washed over him, warm and blinding. He smiled, a small, tired smile, the kind a man wears when the war inside him is finally over. As the ship vanished into the clouds, he sat down on the edge of the ridge. The storm had gone. Only calm remained. Far away, Kira held Luma close, pointing at the streak of light fading above the horizon. "Is he coming with us?" Luma asked. Kira swallowed hard, whispering, "He already did."